You said that referrals are starting to come in. Do you have an estimate of how many, understanding that it's up to SHNB, how many will be admitted? I'm curious to know how many will be referred in the next, month or so.
I can get that number for you. I don't have it right now.
Be great, thank you. Understanding, as you had said, that there currently isn't a wait list because you weren't keeping a wait list during the pandemic. That's as close as I can, as close of information as you can provide as to what the ministry is anticipating the requests will be for accessing the beds that are available. Thank you. How many correctional staff are employed at the correction side of SHNB?
We'll have to see if we have that with us. We'll just look it up.
So at SHMB, we have 59 FTEs that are permanent and 25.6 non-perm for a total of 84.6 FTEs.
Thank you. Last year I had asked for some numbers around transit service for released inmates. I'm wondering if you could provide me an update on this past year's numbers.
So for 1920, we have a breakdown by center of the number of offenders assisted with transit. Pine Grove, we have 27 offenders use taxi, 224 use the bus, and 0 were on city transit. For SCC, it's taxi 15, bus 89, and city transit 666. For PA Correctional Center, 0 taxi, 0 bus, 0 city transit. Regina Correctional Center, 135 taxi vouchers and 5 bus tickets.
Do you have the cost as well?
So for PA Correctional Center, of course, there was nothing. SCC, $6,000. Pine Grove, about $13,000. Regina Correctional Center, $4,000 for roughly a total of $24,000.
Thank you. Now, I almost forgot to ask why White Birch wasn't being utilized at the time that the isolation unit was created. Could you provide some information?
So, of course, we've been talking about the counts decreasing. So the offender count at White Birch was 0. There were no offenders in it. We were having a full staffing complement in an empty facility. We utilized those resources as our contingency. We redeployed them back to the Regina Correctional Center to assist with staffing, and the nurse also went back to Regina Correctional Center to assist with, our pandemic planning. So it wasn't, the facility was empty at the time the decision was made to use it as an isolation site. It now has been empty. It's been sanitized. Administrative Central Services came in and they made sure that everything was sanitized. Mark McFadden, the Executive Director of Custody Services, again, made sure that when our staff and our offenders go back in there, it's completely void of any type of virus or communicable infections.
Is it currently housing inmates right now?
Still, the Pine Grove, the remanded females account is low, so they are still at Pine Grove Correctional Center because we are still using and implementing the protocols of our pandemic and COVID response at Regina.
So I'm curious about this. Because White Birch is typically used, and please correct me if I'm wrong, for housing female inmates who have court in the southern part of the province. Is that mostly happening by video link now, or is it simply because the numbers are down? Could you provide some more detail?
Yes, you're correct. Video court, we are utilizing video court to its fullest extent when we can, and because the numbers are low, that the transports between Pine Grove and Regina, Yorkton, Moose Jaw are small.
Thank you. While I have time, I'd like to ask a few questions about the numbers around segregation, so I don't know if you want to grab your notes for that. Yeah. Do you have the numbers, point-in-time counts for administrative and disciplinary segregation?
Administrative segregation, a snapshot for 2020 at Regina Correctional Center. We have a total count of total count at the time of the snapshot, which was March 6th, was 683. At that time, we had 0 offenders on administrative segregation. White Birch, we had 17 at that point in time, again, 0 on administrative segregation. PA Correctional Center, 491 at that point in time, 0 on administrative segregation. Pine Grove, 188, 0 on administrative segregation. Saskatoon, 523. We had 1 on administrative segregation for a 0.1% rate.
Disciplinary segregation?
So this is a point in time on March 6th. Regina Correctional Center, 688. There were 20 offenders segregated. White Birch, 17, 0 segregated. Prince Albert Correctional Center, 491, 8 offenders were segregated. Pine Grove, 188, 13 were on a disciplinary segregation, and Saskatoon Correctional Center, 523 at that point in time, 21 were on disciplinary segregation for a total of 62 offenders provincially, for a total count of offenders provincially 1,905. Total of those offenders on administrative segregation were 62 for a 3.4% rate.
Provide the average length of time in disciplinary segregation as well as the highest mark and the lowest mark as well, please.
The average length of stay for 1920 was 9.9 days on administrative segregation. I don't know if I have disciplinary. I do not have the length of time for disciplinary.
Could you undertake to provide that information, the average similar to what you did with administrative, but also the longest stay and the shortest stay as well, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Could you provide how the ministry defines administrative segregation?
Administrative segregation is now defined as a status within a correctional facility subject to a legislative process that may be used as the last resort to contribute to the safety of inmates, staff, and the public by assisting in maintaining the security of the correctional facility. Administrative segregation is a temporary, non-punitive measure and does not include disciplinary segregation or temporary confinement pending a disciplinary hearing.
Really, do you have a definition for disciplinary segregation?
I will have to get you that definition along with the statistics that you asked earlier.
Be wonderful, thanks. Thank you, I appreciate those answers. I've been told that my time is pretty much up, so I do want to take this opportunity to thank the minister, you minister, and as well as yourself, Deputy Minister, for answering my questions to date, as well as all of the officials for being here this afternoon and answering my many varied and often scattered questions. I do really appreciate it. I also want to echo what Minister Tell had said in the middle of estimates. My office received a lot of calls of, as had been mentioned by a few of the officials, worried staff and worried loved ones of inmates about the pandemic and what was going to happen to them and the ones that they love. And the ministry officials have handled a very difficult situation very well so far, I think, and the numbers show for that. We've seen concerning outbreaks in correctional centers and other jurisdictions, and it's great that so far we haven't had that happen here, and that's largely to the great work of as Minister Tell had said, the officials. And I also want to thank the staff in your office, Minister, particularly your chief and your MAs, for being very responsive to my inquiries and the inquiries of the folks that were reaching out to my office during a very, very, very difficult time to be working. So thank you for everything this evening. Thank you for this afternoon. I guess we'll be back in an hour anyways. I'll thank you folks again then, I suppose, but thanks for everything for the folks at Hansard and everyone for being here and keeping us safe today.
Minister Tell, do you have any closing remarks?
No, I also will be here in an hour, so I'll say my thank you to the committee when I'm done.
So the time being 5:31, we'll take a recess until 6:30.